In the previous lecture, we were able to understand what was linear independence dependence and at least one result about when can I add a non-zero vector to a linearly independent set. All right. So there was an if and only if condition. So now I would like to look at what are called finite dimensional vector spaces. So what's the definition? Let V be a vector space over F. Then V is said to be finite dimensional or is finite dimensional if there exists a finite subset S of V such that the linear span of S is V. Is it okay? Finite dimensional means I'm able to find a finite subset which gives you that. All right, so let's look at examples to understand it better. Example 1. Now, if I look at R3, I can say that R3 is generated by 1 0 0, 0 1 0, and 0 0 1. Fine. So I can take S to be this set, and I see that LS of S is indeed R3, implies R3 is finite dimensional. Fine. If I look at set of all polynomials of degrees say 7 less than equal to 7, so set of all polynomials of degree less than equal to 7, then you can see that the set S which is looking at 1x, x square, x cube till x to the power 7 generates R of this. Why it generates? Because if you take any polynomial of degree less than equal to 7, it has the type a0 plus a1x plus a2x square plus a7 x to the power 7, and therefore this belongs to the linear span of 1x x square till x to the power 7. Fine. Is that okay? So these are a0, a1, a2, they are ai's are in R for 0 less than equal to I less than equal to 7. Fine. So this is in the linear span. So I've given you two examples of finite dimensional vector space. Now let's look at a generalization of this. So from polynomials of degree less than equal to 7, I want to look at all the polynomials. All polynomials in X with coefficients from R. So we say that this is not finite dimensional. This is not finite dimensional. Why it is not finite dimensional? Anything? So the idea here is not finite dimensional as a polynomial can have any positive degree. Right? So I can have polynomial degree 1, degree 2, degree 3, degree 5, degree 0, degree million, billion, trillion, whatever you stop, I can have always a polynomial of degree greater than that. All right, so think about it and get your answer. Fine. So now the main theorem that we have here is very, very important theorem is this following. Let's see how we going to use it and how do we prove it. Fine. So both the things that is important. So let S is equal to U1, U2, UK be a non-empty subset of a vector space V over F. Fine. If T is a subset of linear span of S, I'm not saying that T is a subset of V. I'm saying that T T is indeed a subspace of V because LS is a subspace of V, but I want T to come from only LS of S. Fine. If T is a subset of L of S with more than K vectors. And what is this K? If you look at K, K is nothing but number of elements in S. All right. This, then T is linearly dependent. Right. So more than K, so I'm saying strictly greater than. All right. So what I'm saying is that kernel of T is strictly greater than K. Is that okay? That's what I'm saying. I would like you to observe here that we are not saying that S is linearly independent. We're not talking about independence or dependence of S. I do not know about that. But what I'm saying is that once I have a set consisting of K vectors, if I pick more than K vectors from the linear span of that, then I have a problem. All right. So it will be always linearly dependent. So let's look at the proof. Proofs gives you insight into how the system of equations are being used. So I'll do that. All right. So let T with a set given by W1, W2, Wm, a subset of Ls of S, and I'm assuming that M is greater than K. Fine, I'm assuming this part. Now, since Wi they belong to linear span of S, so I can write them, I can find a scalars Aij such that Wi is linear combination of these vectors. All right. So I can write W1 as A11 U1 plus A21 U2 plus so on plus A K1 UK, W2 as A12 U1 plus A22 U2 plus so on plus AK2 UK. See, be careful because I do a lot of mistakes. You have to be very, very careful about this. Similarly, Wm will be equal to A1M U1 plus A2M U2 plus AKM UK. I can write like this. Fine. So this is coming because Aij's are from F, wherever the vector space is. Fine. And I can do it basically because Wi's they belong to the linear span. It means that each element Wi is a linear combination of vectors from S, which is U1, U2, UK. Fine, I can do this. So let us write this in a proper format, matrix form. So I've got W1 here, W2 here, Wm here. I can write this as, so look at this part U1, U2, UK. So I can again write here U1, U2, UK. And I have a matrix here. Look at the first into W1. W1 is coming from A11, A21. So I've got A11, A21, A31 till AK1. Fine. W2 is coming from everything here. So it will correspond to the second column. So second column will give me A12, A22 till AK2. And Wm will give me the last one, which will be the last one here. So A1m, A2m, and AKM. Fine. So what we see here is that this matrix, what are Wi, I do not know as such, but this is a matrix of some size. This is also a matrix of some size. And I have got a matrix here, which is A, and the size of this matrix is K cross A. Fine. So note that A is K cross M with M strictly greater than K. Fine. This implies the homogeneous system Ax is equal to Z, 0 has at least one non-trivial solution. Why do I have that? So the important thing is that I have at least one non-trivial solution because if I look at the rank of this matrix, the rank of A will be less than equal to K because K is less than equal to M, and this K is strictly less than M. So this implies I have at least one free variable. All right, fine. So if you remember, the rank gives you the number of basic variables. So the rank is t is less than equal to k. It can be at most k. So I can have at most k basic variable. There will be m minus k non-basic variable, and therefore I'll get free variables. And therefore the system has infinite number of solution. And therefore I have an x naught has at least one non-trivial solution, say x0. Fine. So this implies if I look at this vector w1, w2, wm of x naught, this will be equal to u1 to uk times a of x naught, and this is same as u1 to uk. Ax naught is a zero vector, so it will be zero. All right. Thus, x naught is a non-trivial solution of the system alpha 1 w1 plus alpha 2 w2 plus alpha m wm is equal to 0 in the unknowns alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha m. All right. So when we look at whether a substance set is linearly independent or dependent, we are supposed to solve this equation. And if you can show that there is at least one non-trivial solution, then we know it is linearly dependent. And you have got a non-trivial solution, and therefore this is, so this implies the set T is linearly dependent subset. Fine. So we have proved it. So you can look at very nicely that how the system of equation has come up nicely, and we have been able to get the result. Is that okay? So be careful. This is very, very important. It says that I cannot go beyond certain things. Is that okay? I cannot pick more than certain number of vectors from LS of S. Is that okay? If LS of S has 10 vectors, if S has 10 vectors, then I cannot pick 11 or more vectors from LS of S to get linear independence. All right. So a definition. Let V be a vector space over F, then a subset B of V is called a basis of V over F if 1, B is linearly independent, 2, LS of B is whole of B. So I need both the conditions to be valid. So this part says that it is linearly independent, and this says it is a spans. So what we are saying in some sense is that I have a smaller set, so important. In some sense, we are saying that the size of B is a small as well as large. So small means I'm picking the smallest size here, the smallest size to get the linear span, and I'm getting the largest linearly independent set in this. So largest linearly independent set in V. All right. So I should have said that V is finite dimensional. That I have not said. Let this V be a finite dimensional vector space. So I missed that part. Otherwise, I'll have to go and do something more. Fine. So you have to be careful about that. I want to say it is a finite dimensional vector space. Fine. So let's look at this theorem, which follows directly from the previous one. Let V be a finite dimensional vector space over F, and let B1 and B2 be two bases of V. Then the number of elements in B1 will be equal to number of elements in B2. All right. Fine. So the number of elements cannot change. They have to be the same. Why so? Look at the previous theorem. Previous theorem says that if I pick, so if I look at B1, then V is LS of B1. So if I pick more than number of B1 elements, the set will become linearly dependent. And once it becomes linearly dependent, it will not be a basis because the basis requires the set to be linearly independent. All right, fine. So, and then you can do the vice versa and get your result. So try that out yourself. Fine. So what we know is that since the number of elements in any basis is going to be the same, we call it the dimension of the vector space. So definition, let V be a finite dimensional vector space over F. Then we define the dimension of it, then the dimension of V over F denoted dim of VF. This is the way we write. All right, sometimes we will not write F because most of the times it is real numbers, only sometimes it's complex numbers. This is the number of vectors in any basis of V. Fine, because any two bases will have the same number of elements. So I just have one basis and that gives me the answer. Fine. So let's look at some examples to proceed further. So if I look at the set R is a vector space over R itself. So 1 is a basis of this. So dimension of R over R is 1. Fine. Similarly, I would like you to see that dimension of Rn over R is n because I can generate it using E1, E2, En. Fine. There is a basis consisting of n elements. Fine. 3. Look at Cn. Cn has two ideas that Cn can be vector space over R as well as over C itself. In this case, I would like you to see that dimension of Cn over C is n because again I have got E1, E2, En as a basis. But here it is going to be 2n. Why? Basically because if I want to look at, say, C itself complex numbers C over R, C over R, then the set 1 comma I is linearly independent. Why linearly independent? Because I'm looking at over R, I'm not allowed to multiply by I, or when I look at the system alpha times 1 plus beta times I is equal to 0, I cannot equate that alpha is 0, beta is 0, things like that in general. So here we can say that since I'm looking at alpha and beta as alpha and beta are real numbers, we can equate the real and imaginary parts to get alpha is 0 and beta is 0. So if alpha and beta were complex numbers, I could not have been able to equate it, but here I can equate it. So you can see that this will be 2n. So I would like you to try that out and look at some of the examples which are there in the notes. Some of them are extra, so just do that. All right. So important lemma. Let S be a finite linearly independent subset of a vector of a finite dimensional vector space V over F. Then S can be extended to form a basis of V over F. All right. Why I can do that? So the basic idea is that, look at the previous theorem. I know that S is linearly independent. S is linearly independent. So proof. Fine. If LS of S is V, done. I have a basis already. If not, if LS of S is not equal to V, pick V belonging to V minus LS of S. This will imply that S union V is linearly independent. And again, proceed with the same thing. So again, go back and then, so repeat this algorithm. This algorithm has to stop because V is finite dimensional. So after finite number of steps, I will be having nothing to compare. All right, fine. So as a last result in this topic, I would just like to state the following, that, so just try that out yourself, complete it. Finally, so we have a small lemma again, that if S is linearly independent, so if S is linearly independent, then any vector in LS of S is a unique linear combination of basis vectors. I would like you to prove it yourself. So what I'm saying is that, basically, example, if I have got the vector, say 1, 1 and 1 minus 1, this is a basis of R2 over R. So you can prove that if I want to write any xy in R2, then xy is a unique linear combination of vectors 1, 1 and 1 minus 1. Why? Basically because this vector 1, 1, 1 minus 1, this matrix A is invertible. Fine. So this is one example. 2, suppose that I am looking at vectors U1 as E1 as 1, 0, 0, U2 as 1, 0, 1, U3 as 0, 1, 0, and U4 as 1, 1, 1. Suppose I have this, fine, 4 vectors in R3. Then we know, then U1, U2, U3, U4 is linearly dependent. Why it is linearly dependent? Because I can span R3 by 3 vectors, and we have got 4 vectors here, fine. So here I would like you to see that there are different ways of representing it. For example, I can represent the vector 1, 1, 1 itself as 1 times U4. This is done. So I have got this is my S. I can also represent it using the first two here, U1 plus, sorry, U2 plus U3 plus 0 times U1. All right, so there are different ways of writing it. So I can write the same vector in 2 different ways. Fine. So there is, so unique linear combination, uniqueness is lost. Fine. So keep track of that. We'll understand this more as you come across. So unique means there is only one set of solution for the system AX is equal to B. All right. So when you say uniqueness, means basically we are saying here that AX is equal to B has a unique solution whenever the columns of A are linearly independent. Whenever the columns of A are linearly independent. I'm not saying that A has to be a square matrix. I'm just saying that the columns of A need to be linearly independent. All right. So that's all in this lecture. We'll look at the application of the previous theorems.